You probably thought I was going to make a video on Misty Island Rescue. And yes, I did hint at it in a post, and I did write a script about my thoughts on Misty Island Rescue. But then I watched Unlucky Tug's video where he talked about Misty Island, and I realised that my thoughts on the movie were the same as his. So I didn't want to put out more content on why Misty Island sucks, when there's already 2 videos from Unlucky Tug that are really good, so go check them out if you want. So my last video got over 20,000 views, and that is wild. I never intended that video to get this much attention, and I don't agree with the points I made in that video. I'll talk about it more in my next video, where I go into more detail and say what my actual thoughts on what the drivers do are. But for this video, I thought I'll talk about my 2 favourite characters in Thomas and Friends, so let's get into it. Thomas and Friends has a broad cast of characters, and most fans have that one character that's their absolute favourite. For most children, it's Thomas, the main character of course, and that's because when it comes to kids, Thomas is the most relatable. But as fans get older, they tend to move from Thomas and look at some other characters. This is what I did, because now, as an adult, I've moved away from the younger characters like Thomas and Percy, and moved to 2 of the greatest characters in Thomas and Friends. Flora and Scruff. No, it's actually James and Henry. They are the most goated characters in the show. You may have your favourites and that's fine, there's no need to go,
Well, actually, James is the weakest character in the books because his character arc is just Thomas's recycled.
yes, I know that. James in the books is kinda sloppy. But James in the show is some of the greatest character work I've ever seen. Oh, you think I'm glazing? You bet I'm glazing! But seriously, you're allowed to have your favourites. Whether it's Percy or Toby or Ace the race car, they're your favourites. And I'm allowed to talk about why James and Henry are better. So why do I have 2 favourites? Well, it's tricky. I have 2 because of how they're both represented differently depending on the time they were written. The Henry from the Railway series is a complete contrast to the Henry from the CGI series. And James in the books doesn't hold a candle to James from the model series. So in the original concept of the Railway series, Henry was supposed to be a 442 Atlantic as seen in this concept drawing done by Audrey himself. He was designed to be the middle ground between a small K2 class tender engine named Edward and a large A1 class tender engine named Gordon. However, the illustrator said "F that" and drew Henry the same as Gordon, leaving Wilbert quite unhappy. However, because of these mistakes, it made Audrey work in a pretty radical backstory for Henry. So I'm sure every die-hard Thomas fan knows Henry's backstory, but in case you don't, here's the sum up. This is Sir Nigel Gresley. He is a locomotive designer. He is responsible for the creations of characters like Gordon, Spencer and Flying Scotsman, because he designed all 3 of them. He also designed a lot of other engines, but I'm trying to keep this speedy, so... Some cheeky fella broke into Gresley's office one night in order to steal some drawings for an Atlantic type design. But instead of grabbing the proper drawings, they grabbed a design of a 462 tender engine, one that had been chucked due to some design flaws. Many people believed that Henry's design would be worked into the very successful A1 design, the same design as Gordon. Nevertheless, Henry was built, and when the builder discovered the mistakes, he pawned Henry off to the first buyer he could find. That buyer would be none other than Sir Topham Hatt the First. And according to the Island of Sodor book, this is how Topham reacted. "I wanted an Atlantic," he would boom, "and that fucking son of a bitch sent me that." And I find this so funny considering that this is a canon event in the universe of Thomas the Tank Engine. So anyways, Henry has steaming troubles. His firebox is too small and can't generate enough steam. He continues to have problems until he is introduced to Welsh coal, which burns at a higher temperature, and it helped create more steam for Henry. Finally, Henry works properly and begins pulling his own trains that are just for him, like the Flying Kipper. The future was looking bright for Henry, and then he crashed. But don't worry, he was fixed and he was rebuilt to resemble a Stania Black 5, and from then on, Henry didn't have any more problems, and throughout the books, he became a little bit of a jerk, but he had his funny moments. But he still had a little bit of an obsession about his self-image, because despite his rebuild, he was still insecure about his abilities. Speaking of characters obsessed with self-image, I think it's time to jump over to everyone's favourite red engine, James. James was introduced in the Railway series' second book, Thomas the Tank Engine, and initially he was painted black. He crashed on his first day, and once he was fixed, Topham painted him red to keep his spirits up. However, as I mentioned before, James's character arc is just Thomas's recycled, though he does bring something to the table that was a staple in the history of the Railway series. James doesn't like diesels, and this was written specifically because at the time of publishing the books, steam engines were being phased out and scrapped and being replaced by diesels across British railways. But other than that, James doesn't bring a whole lot else to the table, and this is probably why James took a back seat in the books. But boy did that not happen in the TV series. In the TV series, the first few seasons are a direct adaptation of the Railway series, so nothing really is expanded upon with Henry and James's personality. But as the show started to drift away from the source material, Britt Allcroft and David Mitton really began to have a blast with these characters, and that's very apparent with Henry and James. James's love for his red paint is actually a model series thing. It was mentioned in the books, more so that James liked his red paint, but when it came to the outright pride for it, that was very much a TV series thing. Henry also got expanded upon. His love for the trees is something completely original to the show. Actually, Audrey hated the episode about Henry and the trees.
Now, what interest does a steam locomotive have in scenery?
In my personal opinion, of course an engine would have an interest in scenery, because that's all they see. While they move along, they're looking at the trees and the stuff around them. But, these, while being cool facts about James and Henry, they aren't the reasons they're my favourites. Henry and James are funny, especially in Season 5. They're constantly taking jabs at other engines, and even before Season 5, they're just funny characters to watch.
Ugh, what dirty objects, he would say. Beep, 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 beep. Hello, fat face, whistled Henry. What are you engines doing here? Hissed Henry. This shed is for the Fat Controller's engines. Go away.
What's that, Duck? Are you afraid of bees? They're only insects after all, so don't let that buzzbox diesel tell you different.
Well, 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 chuckled Henry. Did you like the water? No. Water's nothing to an engine with determination, you know.
You should see the situation from Cranky's point of view, said James. He's high up in the air, coping with wind, rain, and baking sun. Then he looks down and sees you two little engines being annoying. No wonder he calls you bugs.
Pah! You're late. That smell is making me ill.
James, why don't you think about something or someone else for a change? You'll be surprised at how much better you'll feel if you do. Oh, please. Being important is the only thing for me to think about.
I suffer dreadfully and no one cares. Rubbish, Henry, snorted James. You don't work hard enough.
They're also the most pleasing to look at in my opinion. I'm a sucker for the 060 tender engines. I think they just look the best. And I know that James is technically a 260 tender engine, but his basis, the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway Class 28, isn't. And it looks so good. It's why I also love Donald and Douglas. But I also love Henry's basis, the Black 5, because not only does it look really, really cool, but boy is it strong. I'm blabbering about random stuff at this point, but I just think that out of all the characters, Henry and James are the best. And even in the CGI series, James is still such a good character. Henry isn't though. Henry sucks shit in the CGI series, and I'm so mad about it.
Henry tends to worry and be overcautious.
Making Henry scared of everything is a complete contradiction of who Henry actually is. And then just writing him off when things were getting good?
Branch line.
And Sir Topham Hatt says I can stay in the sheds in Vickerstown from now on.
What?
And then replacing him with Rebecca? I hate Rebecca! And I know what you're thinking. Oh, you don't hate Rebecca's character. You just hate that she replaced Henry. You bet I do. When I watched Henry get written off the show, I'm not joking when I say that I teared up. I didn't know what the future of the show would be like without Henry, but it didn't matter, because the show ended. And then the show got rebooted. And Henry wasn't on it. James was, but it's not worth mentioning. It was all in his go, and that show ended too. And now, this new show has been announced, and it's confirmed that Henry and James are going to be in it. You can guarantee that I'm going to be watching it the second it releases. And if James or Henry suck in the show, I'm going to kill myself. So I hope you've enjoyed me yapping about my favourite characters. If you have a different favourite character, please comment it down below, and talk about why you love them so much. I have another video coming out soon, so I will see you all then.